Let's take a look at a mock-up to see where we're going with this login form. So this is the initial login form. Of course, we'll end up adding this remember me checkbox later in the lesson, but for now, we're going to start with the two fields, email and password, and then just a login button. We'll also put a sign up now link just in case the user hasn't already signed up for the site. This will generally follow the same model as the sign up form, but the routes are going to be different. So let's take a look at that. Recall in the last lesson that we added a line called resources users. This supports the routes for all of the standard REST actions for users, so that's things like creating, destroying, updating, new, and so on. But for the sessions resource, we're only going to use named routes. So we're going to define 3 routes corresponding to new, create, and destroy. So the new page will be a GET request, just a regular browser hit. And we're going to route that to the login page. So this will give us a helper, login path and login URL. That's going to be routed to the sessions controller and the new action, just like this here. You can compare this to the sign up route. Now remember, to create a resource, you post to a URL. So if you post to login, we're going to route that to sessions create. So that's the sessions controller create action. And then if we issue a delete request, that's going to destroy a session. So this is a new kind of request. We haven't talked a lot about delete, but this is the kind of request used to destroy an object. So in this case, we're going to destroy a session. So we'll route that to sessions destroy. And I'd like to line these things up, so let's line up compared to delete here. This makes the structure a lot clearer, I think. We can also move this over, line everything up. There we go. So these are the 3 routes for the sessions form. This is going to be the login page, and then we'll post to the same login route, and that will be routed to the create action. And then we'll have a logout link as well, and that will be routed to the sessions controller destroy action. Let's take a look at a table just to reinforce this idea. This is the table of the kind of HTTP request, the URL, the named route, the action, and the purpose. So this is what we've just created in this routes file. One nice thing you can do in Rails is take a look at all of the routes. We've just defined these. So you might wonder, well, what if I forget what the correspondence is between, say, these requests and the named routes? And the answer is you can type rake routes. This will tell you the routes that are defined by the current application. Take a look at this here. So here is the section that defines the sessions right here. And this has all the other routes as well, including the standard REST actions for users that we get from including resources users in the routes file. Now that we've defined the routes, let's create the login form. This will be very similar to the sign up form from the last lesson. So let's recall what that looks like. This is the new users here. So what we want to do is have something similar for the new sessions. In fact, we can start just by copying this. Let's do that. And think about what the differences will be. Well, this will be login. Provide a title, login, and the same thing here. We're going to use the same basic HTML structure, so we can just copy these divs. But there's going to be a difference in here with the form for. So you might think, well, we're going to create an @session variable in the controller, the session controller, and then create a form for manipulating that session. But that won't work because this has to be an active record object to use this sort of form for @user. In particular, among other things, because this is an active record object, this form over here, this user sign up form, knows to create a form that posts to /users, the user's path. But in the case of sessions, because it's not an active record object, we're going to have to tell Rails which path to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a symbol, which is the kind of object we're creating, or the kind of object that this form is for. And then we're going to give it a URL. In this case, remember, looking here, it's going to be the GET request is going to go to the login path. So let's do that here. So this is how you make a form for something that isn't an active record object. Also recall that these error messages here rely on this @user.errors.fullMessages. But again, this only applies to an active record object. So we're not going to be able to render the errors for the sessions using the same technique. We'll see in a moment what we're going to do. But we need to delete this for now. Oh, and actually, I said something wrong before when we were looking at this table. It's actually not this login path here. It's the one here. It's the same named route, but this here works because of this route. Because of this here. This form for is going to create a form that will issue a post request to this path. So it's true that it's the login path, but it's not this one. It's not the one that responds to a GET request. It's this one, the one that responds to a post. Let's continue on down the file. We've got f.labelName. Take a look at our mockup just to remind ourselves. What we've got on this login form is email and password. So let's get rid of name. Keep email. Keep password, and we can get rid of confirmation. Instead of create my account, let's have it say log in. And then remember from the mockup, we want to have a link to the sign up page. So let's do that. That goes outside the form. We'll put it inside a paragraph tag. And then we'll link to the sign up path. Save it, and now let's take a look at it. At this point, you might be tempted to try clicking on login, but of course that doesn't work yet. It's just this little hash symbol. We will be filling this in this lesson, of course, but for now, let's just go to /login. Just type it in directly. You can see I've set the browser to remember the email and password here, so those are pre-filled. But this is the basic login form, so you can see it's essentially working. It's pretty close to the mock-up. Got login, email, password, login button, and the link there. Let's take a look at the HTML for this thing. Here's the form. You can see that the action is /login. That's because of this here, login path. And the method is post. That's just something that comes automatically from form 4. And let's take a look at the form itself. So again, there's this stuff you should probably ignore. And then we've got a label for the session email. And then there's an input field for the email, an input field for the password, and then the button. And again, because of this f object, this thing here, this form object, which now refers to a session, and because we're doing f.textField and so on, we get things like name equals session of email. So that's how Rails is going to build up a params hash and will let us pull out the email and password to initiate a new session. That is to say, to log a user in.